Welcome to the Nestled podcast. I'm April.
And I'm Bailey. We are friends and neighbors who left our design business to champion a message of hospitality.
We live in a time where deep connections are so hard to come by.
But we want no part of that.
Our desire is for people around us to be seen, heard, and known.
And we want to take you on that journey with us.
So come back each week to take a peek in our nest.
As always, the door will be open. Hello, everybody. Welcome back.
Hey, welcome to the Nestled podcast. I'm April.
And I'm Bailey, and we are so glad you're here. If this is your first time listening in, we are in the middle of a series called Nestled in Him, where we're talking a lot about comparison and the struggles that a lot of us have in that area.
We asked our faithful listeners for some areas that they struggled in comparison, and they were so great to give us so many different ways that we could kind of talk about this topic, and so we decided to turn it into a series. And if you've been along this journey with us the whole time, thank you for continuing to interact with us, and we have really enjoyed your feedback. And this particular topic we threw out there again just to get a little bit further of what you guys meant, and you gave it to us.
Yeah.
So we've got some great areas, and I think we're actually going to break this one down into two because there were so many of you that responded.
Right. So this one, we're talking about comparison in our families, and we did hear from a lot of people. So we're going to try and get through most of our listener comments today, and then we'll give some more of our thoughts and feelings
Next week.
But if you listening have something else you want us to touch on, you can send that to us as well, and we will touch on that next week.
Yeah, so we just want to remind you guys that comparison and contentment are opposing forces, and if you are struggling with looking side to side and comparing yourself to others, comparing family, comparing all the things that we've talked about, you are going to lack contentment in your life.
Right. And I think this area in particular, when we're talking about family, this is such an unfair place to find yourself comparing.
Yeah.
It's not fair to your kids, it's not fair to your husband, and it's not fair to yourself. And if you're single, it's not fair to yourself.
No, it's not. And honestly, we laughed last night. We were talking, I said, I was listening to our kids do the New City Catechism at church, and they were listening to the little songs about all of the questions and answers, and it got to the songs about the 10 Commandments, and I told Bailey, I was like, it's just funny because we try to make this about so many different things, but at the root of it, it's envy.
Right.
And envy is like morality 101 sinful.
Right.
You know, it's 10 Commandments. You know, it doesn't get more basic than that. And so at the end of the day, we can call it whatever we want to try to make it not so disgusting, but it really is sinful, and it's standing between us and our relationship with God, and ultimately between us and our relationship with people as well.
Right. And I know y'all have heard us chat about this before, but as Christians, we should be the most joy-filled people on the entire earth. Not because things are easy here, or because we have the best body, or our kids reach the highest achievements, but because we have a hope that is eternal.
Right.
And we know that we have a Savior. And so we should be able to put everything else in its proper place.
Right. Because if our focus is on things above and on things that have kingdom impact, then we aren't going to get wrapped up in the things that are temporary. Right. And all of these issues that we're talking about, we're not saying nobody should struggle, that we don't struggle, that we're above that, but that if we take our eyes off of the things that are temporary and put our eyes on the things that are eternal, everything finds its right place. And as believers, if we truly are followers of Christ, our hope is eternal.
Right.
And so our lives should look different.
Right. And I think whenever we do that, we're going to help ourselves not fall into the trap that I think so many of us can fall into, where we're letting comparison rob ourselves of these special years with our kids.
Yeah. We don't have another opportunity. We're not going to get these years back.
There's no do-over.
We're not going to get these years back with, if you don't have kids, you don't get these years back with your siblings. You don't get this time back with your parents.
Right.
You don't get this time back with
your grandparents.
If they're still
here. Yeah.
And so we just have to make the most of the time that we have here.
Right.
Yeah, so stop it.
Yes, stop it.
That's our answer to
ourselves
and
as
to
well.
ourselves.
Yes.
Yes, this is something that we speak to one another often. That's enough.
Right.
Don't do that anymore.
Right. And so we're going to jump right into some of the things that you guys sent in to us about areas that you struggle with in comparison in family. And like we said, if there's anything that we don't cover that people sent in and you want us to, just shoot us a message on Instagram.
Yeah.
That's probably the easiest way.
Yeah, except, look, guys, we've been a little absent on social media, and it's been all on Bailey because my phone is broken to where I can't access the top of my screen, and that means I can't post anything. So,
Well, and let's be honest, I'm not the most consistent person, so
it takes two of us to be like semi-consistent when it's all going well.
But what I will say is we have plans.
I have thought so many times things I wanted to tell you guys, and even tried, like, maybe it's going to work, but you can't get past the edit screen without
so it
saying
just kinda
done.
stuck.
So I'm always stuck, and I'm sorry. We love you guys. I'm going to get it fixed.
Maybe soon.
Maybe.
Mine's broken too. It's just not so broken that I can't touch things yet.
Yet. So anyway, all of that to say, send it to us.
Send
Bailey
it to us and
will
I'll read it.
read it and screenshot it and send it to me.
Right. And I know whenever you screenshot a direct message, the person gets
Or
a
a
notification, or a story, the person gets a notification. So, like, just know whenever you get that notification, I'm just screenshotting it to send it to April because she can't open it.
I can't get it.
I'm not being weird. Yeah.
Well, we are weird, but that's not us being creepy. Have any of you guys done that? I need to know if anyone else has done that where you screenshot something that first time that somebody did it to you and it says, such and such just screenshot your story, and you were like, oh, no, I didn't. I don't care that somebody did it to me, but like...
Oh, it was total panic.
We were like, how many messages are people getting?
Oh, yeah. I called April and my sister, who are the people I most often send screenshots to. It was like, did you know people get a notification? And so we were trying to figure out, like, what exactly do you have to screenshot that it sends a notification to them that they have been screenshotted? Anyway.
Yeah. I didn't know if we were the only people
Maybe that's
that
just
were
an
dealing
us
with
problem.
that. But from what we understand, it's only in stories or direct messages. So if you're screenshotting someone's post...
you should be okay.
You should be okay. But be nice.
But if you didn't know when you screenshot someone's story, I know for sure story. Maybe it's not a message, but I know a story.
Yes.
If you screenshot someo's story, it does send them a notification.
Yes. Okay.
So, anyway.
So that's just your
That's
PSA.
your Instagram lesson from us today. Okay, so listener comments. Okay, the first one was a listener who said she struggles with feeling jealous of other people who have husbands who aren't traveling. And look, I would struggle with that too if my husband traveled. So
Yeah. I don't necessarily have any like good advice for that. I think that at the end of the day, we can't compare, even, our marriage topic that we talked about. We can't look at other people's relationships and compare it. We have to make the most of what we've got. And so I don't necessarily have any advice particularly on that topic other than I think that we just have to be careful to take what we have and to really see how can we love each other well in the season that we're in. And if it's a strain on your marriage, maybe looking at, is this something that has to be forever?
Right. And also, if your husband is gone, but he's a good husband and a good daddy, try to find the positives in that. Mm-hmm. Like, to be thankful for the time that you have together and try to make sure that you use the time that you do have together really intentionally.
Yeah, and not when he is home
complaining about how hard it is when he's gone.
Yeah.
But no,
that's really hard.
That's a really hard thing.
Yeah, and
a
I
really
think
hard
it's
season.
Maybe something that needs to be said to anyone who struggles with that. Mm-hmm. Like, that's hard.
Also, this has like nothing to do with comparison, but if you're someone that is in that boat, make sure the people around you know how hard, like, that you're struggling.
Yeah,
and if you need help.
We interviewed someone one time who talked about, as a wife to someone who worked on Sundays a lot, how sad and lonely it felt to sit in church by herself.
Yeah.
And
with her kids, but yeah.
Right, and she was married and happily married, but that had never really crossed my mind in that way of how difficult it would be as a woman to be alone in a place where you want to worship with your husband. And so even in that, like, tell people, because that was something that we weren't aware of. And for those of you who aren't in that situation, be mindful of the people around you.
Yes.
Of what they're going through.
And if you have a friend in that situation and you talk to them and you know that it's difficult, like, bring them a meal sometime.
Yeah.
Just see if you can help them cart the kids from one place to another. It is not easy parenting on your own.
Yeah.
And in some ways, comparison, I don't want to compare, so I don't want to say it's harder. But it can be just as hard as single parenting in some ways. Because there is another parent involved, but they're not physically there. And so it's just hard to balance what your role is, I think.
Yeah, and I've talked to military wives who struggle with they have to get in, like, this is how we survive when he's gone.
Right.
Then when he comes home, it throws everything into a tailspin because now everything is different. And there's this, sometimes a frustration of, like, that's not how we do things.
Right.
But then you have to, like, step back and let him take his role as the leader. And so it's just a difficult thing to balance. But I think communication is key for that.
Yeah, I think, too, you could also try to make sure you find a friend who is going through a similar circumstance, so that if you are looking around and feeling like all your friends have their husbands home every night, find somebody going through what you're going through so you can encourage them. And a lot of times that will encourage you as well.
And honestly, who better to love on single moms than somebody who experiences what it's like to be alone a lot of times.
Right.
With your, particularly with your kids. So
I
think that there are a lot of opportunities to use it for good.
Right.
Okay, next one that we got. Feeling like other moms have more capacity.
Here's the truth of it. Different people do have different levels of capacity. That is just
the truth.
That is the truth. There are some of us who are born and wake up in the morning and have an exponential amount of energy that they could never possibly use it all up in a day, and that they love being around people and they're fueled by people, and so the more they're around people, the more it energizes them and they can keep going. And there are other people who wake up in the morning and they have a certain amount of energy, and when it's gone, it's gone.
Yeah. Well, and even beyond just personality, there are so many factors that play into your capacity. Your where you are in birth order plays into that. The way that you were brought up and how much your parents did for you versus how much you had to kind of pull the weight for your own self. I mean, there are so many things, and none of it is actually good or bad.
Right. It just is what it is.
It just is what it is. And so there are certain people who have kind of trained themselves to a certain level of knocking things out, getting things done that maybe you can't do. That doesn't make either one of you better.
Right. I think, too, there can be a real danger, if that's something that you struggle with, of thinking, like, when my kids are this certain age, then it'll be better. Or when this season passes, then it'll be better. And, like, you're just on a hamster wheel.
Yeah.
You know, like, you may never have the capacity to do what you see someone else doing.
And I think that if you are faithful to do what you can, there comes a point that when you stop looking and worrying about what other people are doing, that you're actually able to do more.
I agree. I think, too, take each day one day at a time.
The other thing I would say is if you are saying other people have such a greater capacity and I feel like jealous of them in that, and you're sitting and watching TV and like binging on Netflix, staying up half the night, then you need to reevaluate the way that you're spending your time because you are not being as effective as you could be.
And if you're someone who finds yourself day after day feeling like, why did I not get done what I need to get done or what I thought I could get done, let me suggest to you Kat Lee's book, Hello Mornings. because it is an excellent resource for those of us who maybe have a hard time figuring out how to put structure into our lives.
Yeah. And I used to be a big time list person. I should do more lists now. Now my list really kind of stresses me out. I'm going to have to get back to it. But sometimes just writing down what you need to do and checking it off, and whatever's left, carrying it over to the next day, it just gives you a sense of accomplishment. If you do things that aren't on your list, write it down and check it off.
That's right.
And sometimes that will actually help you be like, wait, I did do a lot.
I got a lot done today.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. Okay, the next one, I feel like this kind of, I would have a similar answer to it as back at our first question, but it's being jealous of families where mom can stay home. And look, once again, that's hard.
Mm-hmm.
It is hard if your desire is to be at home with your babies, but you have to work.
Yes.
That is very difficult. However, you're not doing anybody any good by not loving well the people who are able to stay home because you're so jealous that they're in the position that you wish you could be.
Yeah.
First of all. Second of all, honestly, and I'm not saying that this is every situation, but I think a lot of people really desire being home with their babies and feel like they can't do it, but really it's that they don't want to make the sacrifices to, I mean, that's just the truth.
Yeah.
A lot of families sacrifice a lot of extras to be able to have a parent stay home. And so a lot of times it's not that it's not doable, it's just that it's not doable and maintaining
whatever the lifestyle that you have chosen to live. And
again, that's not across the board. And obviously if you're a single mother,
you don't have that
You don't have the option. So we're not saying that's everyone. But I think a lot of times people probably could find a way to make it work, but they don't want to make the sacrifice. Look, we live on one teacher's salary.
Yeah.
So, and it's not easy.
Yeah.
It is not easy, but it's doable.
Right.
We cut our income more than in half, and we live less than half as well as we used to. But everybody gets we all eat and are clothed and
I think that we just in our culture have such a Western view of what is, I don't know, an acceptable way to live.
Yeah.
Because we truly are the wealthiest people.
Right.
The majority of the country lives on of the world lives on less than $2 a day.
Right.
So
I sent that with my kids for snacks today at school.
Right.
Yeah.
There are a lot of ways that we can look at it and we can say, oh my gosh, we're so poor. But at the end of the day, we have a roof over our head. We have food. We have water. We have a heated, cooled, lighted house.
Right.
We are richer than the majority of the world. And so I think that perspective is a good measure. And if you are a working mom, that doesn't mean you've chosen the less honorable path.
I was going to say that.
But if you're longing for something else, then maybe sit down with your budget, with your spouse, and say, like, can we do this?
Right.
I think that's more of what we're saying than being a working mom is wrong. Because
right, absolutely.
I'm so thankful for the female doctors that we see who have chosen to be working moms. I am so thankful for the teachers and for, countless positions that our families benefit from every day because those people have chosen to work and are gifted in those ways. And so we aren't downplaying that at all. But if there is a longing for something different, then maybe see, is there a difference in our lifestyle, a difference in, even if it means where we live or what we drive or fill in the blank that could make this possible, then seek that out. See what that might be.
Right. I'm glad that you said that because we'll probably get into the mommy wars on the next episode when we're kind of giving more of just like our thoughts and opinions on comparison in families. But I was a working mom way more than I've been a stay-at-home mom, and I enjoyed working.
Yeah.
This is just a season that our family's in that our kids need me at home.
Yeah.
And so we've made sacrifices to make that happen, but I enjoy working.
Yeah.
And so we aren't at all coming on here saying, like, if you're working, you're just not willing to sacrifice. But we're saying specifically, if that's something that you are really struggling with, and you really, really want to do it, like, maybe there are sacrifices that you can make to make it happen.
And vice versa. If you're a stay-at-home mom who feels like you're drowning.
Yes, and you're miserable.
And you are jealous of the mom who's working.
Go get a job.
Find some way. Find something that you love to do. And even if it's just part-time and you're able to kind of feel like a human, because there are times that as a stay-at-home mom, you start to feel like less of a person and like you're just this shell of who you used to be. And obviously, first and foremost, for the glory of God. If whatever you're doing is for your own self, then you're never going to be satisfied. But if you are really seeking that your life be about making much of God and His glory and Christ and making Him known, then find how you can do that.
Right. We loved design, but our families were struggling with the workload that we had taken on in
we
design.
were struggling.
We also were.
Yeah.
However, we have this outlet. Thanks to you guys who are willing to listen.
Yeah.
And it does fill a void for us that would be there if we weren't doing this, because while we are at home, we also feel like we're fulfilling God's call in our life. And also, one more thing. If you're a mom who feels like you're at home and you're just not doing anything with your life, but you're listening to this podcast, like, love your neighbors.
Yes.
You have such a wonderful opportunity that in this period of your life, you have time to look around and love on the people that are, like, literally right around you.
Yeah. And if you're a working mom, love your coworkers. Love the people that you're in contact with every day. That's not by accident that you are in the place that you're in.
That's
Even if it's only for a season.
Right. All right, the next one. Oh, this was a good one. And I'm glad that someone suggested this because it wasn't on my radar.
Yeah.
But being jealous of the relationship between a sibling and your parents.
Yeah.
And I just know from talking to different friends and even family members, that is a prominent issue.
Yeah, it is. I'm so glad that you brought this up because it's just a different take on what we had in our minds about jealousy in families. And I think that there are so many facets to this. One of the things that we talked about is that parents have different relationships with different kids for different reasons. And maybe you don't fully see it, especially if you're coming at it from a place of feeling hurt or it's this long time thing of growing up and feeling like your parents favored a certain sibling over you, or if it's since you had kids that you feel like they spend more time with your siblings' kids. I mean, there's just a million different ways that this plays out. But as a parent, I have learned I do not love any of my kids more than the others, but I love each of them differently.
Right.
And some of them need more at certain times from me than the others.
Right.
And we're all just doing the best we can. And honestly, your parents are probably doing the best that they can too.
Give them some grace.
Yeah.
Especially if at this point you only have one kid. Because I think that as we have more kids, a lot of times it helps us see more from our parents' perspective. And that it wasn't necessarily that they were favoring or are favoring another child over you. It's just maybe that one's needs look different than yours in your parents' eyes. And our advice to anybody when they're struggling with a relationship, talk to them.
Talk to that person.
So talk to your parents. If it's something that you've been holding on to since childhood, or if it's something that you just stepped into in adulthood, talk to them. Let them know. I mean, maybe this sounds selfish, but if there's a need that you need met that they're not meeting, at least give them the courtesy of knowing that that exists.
There is nothing that is more detrimental to any relationship than unspoken, unmet expectations.
Yes.
And if you have expectations of someone that they're not meeting and you haven't expressed those things to them, then you really don't have any leg to stand on to say, I'm so mad at you or my feelings are hurt, because they may not even know. Now, if you have said that to them and it's still that way, it's possible that they just can't do any different. And as far as your siblings go, I know, like, I'm from a family of 6.
Right.
I have 4 sisters and a brother. And sibling relationships can be tricky at times, but they're also some of the most deep connections with people who you share DNA, but you also share
Your childhood.
more history than any other people in the world. And so those relationships are worth nurturing.
Absolutely.
And I think that we all kind of have to step back and look and find grace for our families that we offer to strangers on the street.
Right.
Or our neighbor next door, but we don't always offer to the people who really have been the most impactful in our life. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean if you're from a background of abuse or trauma, or that you just need to let all that go because
Right.
that's your family, and, you know, don't put yourself in a bad situation or your kids in a bad situation just for the sake of family.
Right. But we're talking about healthy, strong families where, like we said at the beginning, comparison can rob you of so many years that you're not going to get the chance to do back. So don't waste your time that you have with your parents or with your siblings or with your nieces and nephews, because a lot of times you'll find yourself letting that jealousy bleed there. Don't waste the time being upset with them and never even saying it. And one day you may look back and think, I spent all those years being angry over what? And I know, too, as an adult, I can look at my 2 siblings who, as a middle child, I was very aware my parents parented us all 3 very differently. But as an adult, I can look and see our different personalities, and I can understand a little bit better of how that happened. I felt like my parents were harder on me, you know, and then I look back and I'll still be like, how was I not the favored child? I was so good. But I think in some ways they were counting on me to handle things myself because I could.
Right.
And honestly, I think I oftentimes then and now put off that I got it. And a lot of times I do feel like I've got it.
Yeah.
So if that's you, like, it's not fair.
Right.
Say, I've got it, but then say, where were you?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's a common issue. So I'm glad that you said that to the person who commented that, because it was a different spin on it. But again, so common.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people are going to hear that and think, oh my gosh, I do that.
Yeah.
I am letting that get in the way. And so I hope that brings some healing. I don't know if we said anything that will help, but we're praying for anyone who's listening who's struggling there for healing in your families.
Yeah.
In that regard.
And just so you know, you're not alone.
Right.
And
not alone.
There is nothing new under the sun. And so sometimes there is this lie that's told to us that we're the only ones who are experiencing this. We're the only ones struggling in this way. And so even if we haven't said anything necessarily that's like profound, which we probably haven't.
Right.
But just so you know, you're not alone. And that other people struggle in the same ways that you do. And at the same time, we all can find healing if we truly are looking at eternity.
Right.
Instead of at the here and now, because we find a love and a grace for people that we don't find anywhere else if we keep that as our perspective.
Right.
All right, next one.
Last one.
Feeling like the only family struggling to have a peaceful home.
You are not.
You are not the only one. And I think this is such a great place to land as far as like finishing this out for this week.
Yes.
You're not alone.
You're not alone. And we've spent a lot of time in this series talking about the struggles of Instagram only being a highlight reel. And I think this is one of the perfect instances to say, like, no one is posting when their kids are yelling at them or when they're yelling at their children.
Right.
Yesterday, my 1-year-old...
I was thinking about this.
Yesterday, my 1-year-old went live on Facebook. She pulled my phone out of my back pocket, and by the time I turned around to get it back, there were 10 people watching her on Facebook, which, by the way, I know who some of you are, and y'all are obviously not my true friends, because nobody called me to be like, 911, Miller is on Facebook Live. Everyone can see what's happening in your home.
Let's see what's going to happen. Tune in.
Yeah, I deleted it.
Don't worry.
As quickly as I could. But I said to my friends, like, by the grace of God, I was clothed. I had just cleaned out the room we were in, which had previously been a disaster. I was finishing sweeping up the last little bits. And I wasn't yelling at anybody.
And that's rare.
And
in
that
our
is
houses.
rare.
My neighbor, and I have a conversation regularly with her. Our houses are so close in Midtown. Literally a driveway separates us from our neighbor. And I told her when we first moved in, and we've become friends, quick friends. She's great.
She is great.
But I tell her often, I'm like, look, do not call DHR on me. If
I
you
love
hear
my
me
children.
yelling at my kids. I really do love them. And I'm not killing them inside of our house.
Right.
Even though sometimes it may sound like it.
Right. And look, guys, I often find myself yelling the sentence to my kids. I don't want to have to yell at you. Why do you make me yell at you?
No one listens to me, and yes, I'm acting like a crazy person.
I feel like I have so much patience, and then I get
snap.
walked over,
Now,
and so I snap. And I'm not saying this is not parenting advice 101. We often say we do not have a parenting podcast.
No, because we are still trying to figure this stuff out.
But I, too, desire a peaceful home. I don't understand why we can't get there with all of the things that I have tried to implement in order to get there.
Well, and I think that, you know, we can laugh about this. And as a matter of fact, Elijah, my oldest, the other day after school, as we started picking people up, and everyone just was, I mean, they start getting in the car and they're just bickering. And at one point, he said something to them, and I said, do you not think that I am being so long-suffering and patient right now? And he was like, yes. They're being the worst. And I was like, there comes a point that you realize that, like, man, I'm trying so hard not to lose it on you guys.
Right.
But the thing that I wanted to say about that is that we can laugh and joke about how we yell at our kids because, let's be honest, there are so few people who never actually lose it.
Right.
Whatever losing it looks like for them. But at the end of the day, if Christ is in your heart, if he's in your life, if you are seeking him, if your home is prayed over, your home is peaceful.
Right.
There is a peace and a comfort, and maybe people can't put a finger on it, but if your house is a safe place, it is a peaceful home.
Right.
And so I think that we can just be discouraged if we think about those moments of losing it versus the moments of, this is a place where you're loved, it's a place where you're known, and even though you're known, you're still accepted.
Right.
And that whenever you come here and you come in our home and you sit down and you sit at our table, you're going to be loved. And
Yes.
that is peaceful.
Yeah, you're right. Also, I think in the grand scheme of things, like if you yelled at your kids twice because they didn't put their shoes up, that was a very small snippet of a 24-hour period.
Right.
I don't think that we yell as much as we feel like we do. I think that those moments kind of stand out in our heads, but I don't think our kids are going to remember that.
Are our kids going to remember that, Elijah? He's in the background. Are you going to remember all the times I yelled at you?
Absolutely, he said. I don't think of my parents just yelling at us all the time.
I don't
and I know that
either.
they did, you know.
I don't either.
And so, yeah, I think that you're right. I think our homes are more peaceful than we realize. And if you are someone who realizes I am yelling at my kids more than I'm not, then like maybe that is some hard work that needs to be done.
Yeah.
Also, I think we have to be careful when we raise our voice what we're saying.
Yeah.
You know?
The other thing I want to say about the opposite of a peaceful home is often a chaotic home.
Mm-hmm.
And beyond just the loud and the clamoring and the bickering between siblings, which is just going to happen.
Yeah.
It just is going to
They're
happen.
humans, and they're
going to get on each other's nerves, and they're going to get on your nerves. But beyond that, a chaotic home can also feel very unpeaceful.
yes,
Non-peaceful. What is the word? Is it not peaceful. I'm going to make that 2 words.
Okay.
It's not
It's
peaceful.
not gonna feel peaceful.
It's not going to feel peaceful. And that may mean you need to take a step back and go, okay, are we overextending ourselves? Are
Yes.
we trying to do too much? Are we trying to have our kids involved in too many things? Are we away from our home too much to where we can't keep our home tidy? Are we eating meals on the go? Because, there are a lot of different ways that your home can get really chaotic. And if that's the case, I think that you just kind of have to reevaluate.
Yeah, I think even if it's a hard season, if you can't look back on this week and think of a handful of times when you've all laughed together, then maybe there is some work to do there.
Yeah.
You know?
And can I just say, if everybody's face is in a device at dinner,
oh my goodness.
and it's gonna feel that way.
Right. If you want our advice, we went screen-free during the weeks. Well, first we threw all the devices out. Then we took TV away during the week. Okay. And it has helped.
It makes a big difference.
My kids detoxed from TV, and now they played outside for 4 hours yesterday.
Yeah.
And it was lovely.
Yeah. So I think that there are different ways that can play out, but I think that if things feel like they're too much, then maybe it is too much.
Yeah.
And
you got to clean some things out.
And
I don't mean just
reevaluate. Your kids, can I just say this, are probably not going to be Olympic athletes.
Right.
So, and if they are, then they're probably going to be Olympic athletes, whether you spend 10 days at the gym in a row or not.
With the exception of gymnasts. They really have to work hard from the beginning. But anyway.
But maybe that's just not going to be, I mean,
right.
at the end of my life, I don't want to look back and think, man, we did all of the extra stuff, and yet we didn't learn how to rest in the Lord. We didn't learn how to be still and listen to his still small voice. And my kids leave my house and they know a lot about baseball and a little bit about Jesus.
Right.
And what it means to really love him.
Right.
And so,
just
chaos,
some things to think about.
Yelling, all of those things, they find their proper place. It's everything kind of comes back to that. What we've, titled this series is
Nestled in Him.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just to wrap all of that up, reiterating back from the beginning, you're not the only one.
You're not the only one. Yeah.
We're just comparing ourselves to fake things. Like, fake family. And, hey, if you know the perfect, peaceful family that things never hit the fan, like, let us know who that is, and we'll have them on the podcast. But I promise you, even the families who appear to be perfectly peaceful to you, whenever you really start talking to them, they're going to say, oh, gosh, no, my kids can be the worst.
Yeah, we all struggle.
We all struggle with that. So, yeah. We tried to stay under 30 minutes. Once again, we did not do it.
We are really bad at that.
We are working towards that. We even said we'll split it into 2 episodes so we can keep them under 30 minutes.
You guys will appreciate this. We've been swimming and we were like, we're going to make it to swim our laps before water Zumba.
We're going to try and do both today. We're not even going to make it to water Zumba.
We're going to be late for water Zumba.
Oh, goodness.
Anyway, well, maybe we'll see you there.
Yeah, y'all come work out with us at the YF Room Mobile. We will be in the pool because I kind of refuse to do anything else.
We don't like to sweat where we're not in the water. Thank you guys for taking a peek in our nest.
We hope you come back next week. As always, the door will be open.